It seems like there's always something to do around here, even when the weather turns cold. Cleanup in fall and winter begins weeks before we get our first freeze. As the first freeze nears, I start looking for plants that just have a few things left to harvest, and maybe plants that might look a little diseased, and I start removing those and harvesting what needs to be harvested. Then before it gets really cold, there are some plants that can't stay outside all winter, such as the banana tree. This is a look at the banana tree after it had already endured a couple of freezes, and as you can see, it's damaged. But in order to get it ready for winter, I needed to cut it back. Since this was my first year for growing a banana tree, I wasn't exactly sure how hard they'd be to cut through. I'm thinking a machete would have been the ideal tool for this, but as you can see, a limb saw goes right through like butter. They're very easy to cut down. Once I had it cut down, I just used oak leaves to cover it up until I had several feet of them. Then once the oak leaves were in place, I used the banana leaves to keep those in place. So it's worked out pretty well, using just materials that I had on hand. Since the ornamental peppers were in containers, I was able to keep them going for about an extra month just by moving them into the garage at night when the temperatures were supposed to be below freezing. Since we had lots of peppers this year, I decided to take some and run them through the dehydrator and make pepper flakes. Last year I just hung our cayenne peppers and dried them the old-fashioned way. Using the dehydrator sure made the process go a lot quicker, and it seemed to work pretty well for making pepper flakes. Along with the peppers, we also dried some basil. And after reading the instruction manual a little closer later on, we discovered that they don't recommend drying aromatic herbs in this particular dehydrator. With our canna flowers, first I have to cut the tops off. Then I dig around the rhizomes and pull the rhizomes out of the ground. And after doing all of that, we did end up with quite a few rhizomes for next year. Since we have so many rhizomes, I'm experimenting with storing them several different ways. Once I got the garden cleared off, I started to notice little holes here and there, and it was obvious that we had some sort of an animal that was digging for grubs. In order to find out what, I decided to set up my trail camera. On the very first night we found out what the animal was. It was a skunk. And in this view you can see it going from one place to another and digging and trying to find grubs. This time of year is also a good time of year for saving seeds. I've saved a lot of pepper seeds and a few tomato seeds, but here I have some marigold seeds. I ended up with a whole bowl full of seeds. I'm not sure what these would cost in the store, but it wouldn't be cheap. This was my second year using grow bags, and in order to save money, what I do is I dump out the soil, and then next spring I'll rejuvenate it by mixing in a few things. After 2 years of use, they're still holding up pretty well, better than I expected actually. I wasn't sure what to expect when I first bought them, but they're doing pretty well. After I dump all the soil out of them, I like to hang them outside and let them dry for a while, make sure they're pretty dry before I finally take them out to our shed and hang them up out there. And that's where they'll stay till spring. As you can see from the picture, after one season of use, our straw bales broke down pretty well. But I'm going to save all of this material and use it next spring to grow in, so it'll get another season of use one way or another. Some of this will go into our compost pile, and some of this will be used to rejuvenate our soil for our grow bags next spring. Here you can see a brand new straw bale compared to one that's been used all summer. We haven't had a whole lot of snow yet, but we've had more than we usually do by this point. And this snow is the kind of snow I like. Big, wet flakes. Last time we were picking up wood chips, I spotted a couple of chunks of wood that I thought might work for a couple of projects I have in mind. So I picked them up, and if I decide not to do those projects, I can always throw them in the back of the pickup next time we go camping. Here's a look at some free wood chips that we picked up recently. They're in the back of my old pickup, which I've had for over 20 years, and the thing's still running, so I'm just hanging on to it for a while. After all, it's only got 250,000 miles on it. I just finished our 3rd year using wood chips in the garden, so it's time to add a few more chips. Some of our original chips that we put down 3 years ago have completely broken down and turned in some pretty nice soil. In our garden, our wood chips are basically mulch that composts in place. It takes it about 3 years to break down, but it finally just turns into pretty good soil. And here you can see I'm just spreading it out, and when I finish it'll be about 2-inch thickness. I'm not sure, I might add a little more, but I'm going to wait until I get it all covered before I make up my mind there. Since I started using wood chips in our garden about 3 years ago, I haven't used our rototiller at all. Now the only time I dig is when I'm planting seeds or transplanting a plant. When I plant seeds, I just pull the chips back, plant the seeds, let them get started, and then once they're growing a bit, I pull the chips back into place. Same way with transplanting, I just take the plant, pull back the chips, plant the plant in a hole, and then pull the chips back around it. Mixing wood chips with the soil can tie up nitrogen a little bit, so I wouldn't recommend doing that. We've gotten a few seed catalogs in the mail recently, and I've been looking them over a little bit. And it seems like whenever I look seed catalogs over, I always get hung up in the tomato section. It's never too early to start planning for next year, so that's what I've been doing, making a list, and I add things and take things out, and I'll start finalizing the list as we get closer to actually planting seeds. Like every year, I'm growing a few new things, but I'm also growing a few things that I've grown before. Once I got most of the wood chips spread out on the garden, I could see that I'm going to need at least one more load of chips, so that'll give me something to do as Christmas approaches. This has been a quick look at some of the things we've done over the last month or so. If you're just now finding this channel and you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. Otherwise, like, comment, and share. And if you haven't clicked that notification bell, click that bell and be notified every time we upload a new video. We'll see you next time.